July 16th, 1945, Alamogordo, New Mexico.
Mm.
Just before dawn, this unbelievable flash, brighter than the sun, really.
And then the sound, the shockwave, it literally shook the ground.
Yeah, it wasn't just an explosion, it felt like the world changed in that instant. The birth of the nuclear age.
Exactly. That's what we're diving into today, the Trinity Test. The first atomic bomb detonation.
A moment that just completely reshaped everything. Warfare, politics, how we even think about the world.
It was the culmination, wasn't it, of the Manhattan Project? This huge secret effort.
Absolutely secret. And it brought together some truly brilliant minds.
For one single terrifying goal.
Our mission today, then, is to get under the skin of Trinity. Why did it happen? I mean, what were the driving forces?
Who were the key people making it happen?
And the science. The breakthroughs needed were just incredible.
And crucially, what does it all mean for us now? What are the ripples still felt today?
Right. To really get it, you have to rewind to, what, summer 45?
August 1945, yeah.
Yeah.
Europe. The war there was over. Germany defeated.
But the Pacific was still raging. Japan was fighting fiercely.
And the U.S. was staring down the barrel of a potential land invasion of Japan.
The projected cost. Just astronomical.
Yeah.
In lives, both American and Japanese.
Unthinkable numbers. And meanwhile, behind the scenes, this colossal thing, the Manhattan Project, is racing towards its conclusion.
It started, didn't it, with those warnings? Einstein, Szilard. Worried about Germany getting the bomb first.
That was the initial fear, definitely. But by mid-1945, the focus had shifted.
Germany was out of the picture. So the bomb became about Japan and something else.
Primarily, yes, forcing Japan's surrender, avoiding that invasion, but also geopolitics, showing the Soviets mainly what the U.S. could do, post-war positioning.
So Trinity was the big test.
Yeah.
The proof of concept. Could this theory, this nuclear chain reaction, actually become that kind of weapon?
The moment of truth. Oppenheimer, the scientific lead, even gave it that poetic name, Trinity. Shows the weight of it, doesn't it?
It really does. They were either about to unleash the atomic age or face this massive failure.
It all boiled down to sort of three core motivations, really.
Yeah.
One, the science, just proving the physics worked, validating the design.
Two, the military need, a knockout blow for Japan.
And three, the political angle, demonstrating American power to the post-war world, especially the USSR.
It feels like such a monumental gamble if it failed.
Huge implications, delayed into the war, wasted resources, maybe even emboldening Japan or others.
But if it worked,
yeah,
well, we know what happened. The world changed forever.
And underpinning that gamble was this revolutionary science, nuclear fission.
Right. Discovered back in the late 30s, the idea of splitting a heavy atom like uranium or plutonium.
When a neutron hits one of these heavy nuclei, U-235 or Pu-239 specifically, it becomes unstable and splits into smaller pieces.
And critically, it releases more neutrons.
Exactly. Plus this enormous burst of energy, heat, gamma rays.
So this is where Einstein's EMC comes in, right? Mass turning into energy.
Precisely. Even a tiny bit of mass lost in that split converts into a staggering amount of energy. We're talking like 200 million electron volts per fission event.
Compared to chemical reactions like TNT, it's minuscule, isn't it? Just a few electron volts.
It's orders of magnitude different. It's like comparing, I don't know, a firecracker to a volcano.
So those extra neutrons fly off and hit other atoms, causing them to split.
Which release more neutrons, hitting more atoms. It's a chain reaction.
An incredibly fast runaway cascade of energy release happening in millionths of a second.
That's the explosion. And the Trinity device, the gadget, used plutonium and a really sophisticated design called implosion.
Which was different from the Hiroshima bomb.
Yeah, Hiroshima used Little Boy, a simpler gun-type design with uranium. Plutonium. Well, it needed this more complex implosion method because of its nuclear properties.
Implosion, so they crushed it. How does that work?
Picture squeezing something uniformly from all sides at once. At the center, you had the plutonium core, about 6.2 kilos of Pu-239, grapefruit-sized, roughly.
Okay, but that amount wasn't enough on its own. Subcritical.
Correct. Subcritical. So around it, they placed these incredibly precise shapes of conventional explosives, like lenses.
Explosive lenses, designed to focus the blast inwards.
Exactly. When detonated perfectly simultaneously, they create a powerful symmetrical shock wave, compressing the plutonium core.
Squeezing the atoms closer together.
Right. Making it much more likely that those neutrons released from fission will hit other plutonium nuclei. It pushes the core from subcritical to supercritical.
And that's when the chain reaction takes off exponentially.
Obviously, massive energy release. But the timing, it had to be perfect. We're talking accuracy within millionths of a second.
Wow. Otherwise,
You get uneven compression, the reaction fizzles out. A dud, basically, or just a much smaller yield.
the precision required is just mind-boggling. And getting there must have been a huge struggle.
Oh, monumental challenges. The Manhattan Project pushed the absolute limits of science and engineering.
Like just getting the plutonium.
That alone was a massive undertaking, building huge, totally new reactors in Hanford, Washington, dealing with radioactivity, safety, and they only had a limited amount.
And those explosive lenses you mentioned, that sounds like incredibly complex physics.
It was. Fluid dynamics, detonation physics. Brilliant mathematicians like John von Neumann were crucial in figuring out the complex calculations needed for that symmetrical implosion.
Then there was the uranium separation for the other bomb design, right?
Yes, for the Hiroshima bomb. Separating the U-235 isotope from the much more common U-238, less than 1% is U-235.
How do they even do that?
Huge industrial scale processes, gaseous diffusion, electromagnetic separation,
Yeah.
plants that consumed unbelievable amounts of electricity, at Oak Ridge, Tennessee mostly.
So, from making the fuel to designing the trigger, constant hurdles, all under wraps.
Complete secrecy. Alamogordo was chosen for its remoteness, minimizing risk to civilians. But the risk to the people working there, it was always a concern. Radiation exposure.
And it took a whole constellation of scientific stars to pull it off.
Absolutely. Fermi, crucial for the reactor physics. Ernest Lawrence and his cyclotrons for separation work. Richard Feynman tackling computation. So many others. A truly collaborative effort, driven by the urgency of the war.
Which brings us back to that desert. July 16th, 1945, 5:29 a.m., that tower.
A 100-foot steel tower in the Jornada de Muerto desert, holding the gadget, the culmination of all that effort.
And then detonation.
A light brighter than anything anyone had ever seen. Blinding, even miles away through protective glass.
Followed by the roar, the shockwave.
And that terrifying, awe-inspiring mushroom cloud climbing tens of thousands of feet, 40,000 feet, estimates say.
The physical effects right there.
Yeah.
The tower just gone.
Vaporized, instantly. And the sand underneath melted and fused into that green, glassy rock. Trinitite, they called it.
You can still find pieces, can't you?
You can, though the site is obviously restricted. And the shockwave was felt, reportedly, 100 miles away, rattled windows even further.
The reactions of the people who saw it,
Yeah.
they're chilling. Oppenheimer's famous quote.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds, from the Bhagavad Gita, captures that profound sense of having unleashed something terrible.
And Fermi, the scientist to the end, estimating the yield with scraps of paper.
Yeah, classic Fermi. Dropping paper, seeing how far the blast wave carried them, just estimating the raw power scientifically.
Then there was Kenneth Bainbridge's reaction. More blunt.
Now we're all sons of bitches.
Yeah.
Just raw, stark realization of the moral territory they'd entered.
So what were the immediate physical impacts? Blast? Heat?
The blast wave itself was immense. Imagine that in a city. Devastation for a mile radius, easily. Test equipment miles away was destroyed.
And the heat.
Incredible. Around 10,000 degrees Celsius in the fireball, melting sand instantly. Burns would have been a major risk even at significant distances.
And radiation.
A huge burst of initial radiation gamma rays, neutrons. The observers were shielded, but the site itself became highly radioactive, contaminated.
That's the fallout, the lingering danger.
Exactly. Radioactive material spread, detected over 100 miles away. It's why access is still controlled today.
And the official story at the time.
Total denial. The Army put out a story about an ammunition dump exploding, just a cover.
Until Hiroshima.
Until Hiroshima just 3 weeks later, when the world learned the truth.
It's that mix of reactions, isn't it? The scientific achievement, the it worked moment.
Followed almost immediately by this deep unease, this moral horror. Feynman described it, the initial cheering, then silence, then this somber understanding.
Oppenheimer really seemed to carry that weight.
He did. His later reflections show that deep conflict. Trinity wasn't just science. It was a threshold crossed, maybe irrevocably.
And just weeks later, that threshold led directly to Hiroshima, August 6th.
Followed by Nagasaki on August 9th. Hiroshima used the uranium little boy, Nagasaki the plutonium fat man, similar to the Trinity device.
The devastation. It's almost impossible to comprehend. Hundreds of thousands killed, instantly or later.
The immediate deaths, the burns, the destruction, and then the slower horror of radiation sickness, cancers. The Hibakusha, the survivors, carried those scars for life, physically and psychologically.
And the bombings did achieve the military goal, didn't they? Japan surrendered August 15th. World War II is over.
They did lead to the surrender. But the ethics, that debate is still fierce today.
Was it necessary? Was Japan already beaten? Could lives have been saved without using the bomb?
Exactly. There's the argument it saved millions by preventing an invasion versus the argument that Japan was already collapsing and civilian bombing on that scale was immoral. There's no easy answer, is there?
No, just the reality of this unprecedented weapon being used on cities, and that immediately changed the global landscape.
It kicked off the Cold War arms race almost instantly. The U.S. had the bomb.
But the Soviets were working on it too, stirred on by Trinity and espionage.
They tested their first bomb in 1949. And for the next 40-plus years, you had this terrifying nuclear standoff.
Tens of thousands of warheads built up. Weapons far, far more powerful than Trinity's gadget.
Up to 50 megatons, some of them. The doctrine of mutually assured destruction, MAD, took hold.
The idea that using them meant suicide so nobody would dare start it.
Right. It prevented direct U.S.-Soviet war, perhaps, but fueled proxy wars, tension, fear, the Cuban Missile Crisis.
We came terrifyingly close. And treaties like the Non-Proliferation Treaty tried to stop the spread.
The NPT in '68 was a major effort. But still, other countries developed weapons: China, India, Pakistan, North Korea.
And the fear today is rogue states or even terrorists getting hold of nuclear materials. The threat hasn't gone away.
Not at all. The challenge of proliferation is arguably more complex now.
Society's reaction has been complex too, hasn't it? That mix of fear and fascination.
Definitely. Especially in the 50s. You had the duck and cover drills, people building bomb shelters.
Yeah.
Real undercurrent of anxiety.
But also this sort of atomic age optimism sometimes. Peaceful uses.
There was some of that early on. But films like Dr. Strangelove captured the paranoia, the absurdity of it all. Sci-fi explored the nightmare scenarios.
And the secrecy around radiation effects bred distrust, didn't it?
Absolutely. People worried about fallout, about what they weren't being told.
And the environment definitely paid a price. Trinity left trinitite, but later atmospheric tests.
Spread radioactive fallout globally, contaminating ecosystems, linked to increased cancer rates. That led eventually to test ban treaties.
Like the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty.
CTBT, yes. Aimed to ban all tests. Not fully ratified by everyone, but a major step.
Which brings us back to the ethics. The scientist's role. Oppenheimer wrestling with it.
Their moral responsibility. Many, like Oppenheimer, became advocates for arms control after seeing what they'd created.
And the whole question of targeting civilians, is that ever justifiable?
A profound question. Proportionality, humanity in war. Nuclear weapons forced that discussion like nothing else.
Plus, building the bomb just encouraged others to do the same, didn't it? Proliferation risk built in.
That's the security dilemma. One state's ultimate weapon becomes another state's ultimate threat.
And the secrecy, while maybe necessary for wartime security, it meant huge decisions were made without public debate.
A fundamental tension. How do democratic societies handle technologies with such world-altering potential?
You still see the clash today. Disarmament groups versus those who believe in nuclear deterrence.
Organizations like ICANN pushing for a total ban versus nations arguing deterrence keeps the peace, however precariously.
It's worth remembering the key figures again. Oppenheimer, the leader, the unifier, but so conflicted.
Fermi, the physics genius. Lawrence, the tech innovator. Feynman, the problem solver. And General Groves driving the military side relentlessly.
Oppenheimer's later treatment, losing his security clearance, that speaks volumes about the post-war paranoia too.
It does. The Cold War climate turned suspicion on even those who had delivered victory.
And globally. The U.S. became a superpower overnight, but
it also sowed the seeds of rivalry with the Soviets. Thanks partly to spies like Klaus Fuchs, they knew what was coming.
setting up that bipolar world. NATO versus the Warsaw Pact. Decades of tension.
Proxy wars fought across the globe. Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan, fueled by that central nuclear standoff. The Cuban Missile Crisis being the closest call.
Even after the Cold War, new challenges emerge. North Korea, Iran, the non-proliferation system is under strain.
Definitely. And the rise of other powers creates a more complex, multipolar nuclear landscape.
Public perception has shifted too, hasn't it? From maybe awe to mainly fear?
Largely, yes. Early optimism about peaceful atomic energy faded. Accidents like Chernobyl and Fukushima didn't help.
And the anti-nuclear movements in the 70s and 80s had a real impact.
They influenced public opinion and certainly contributed to arms control treaties like START.
So where are we now in 2025? The threat is still real.
Very real. 9 nations possess nuclear weapons, maybe around 12,000 warheads total. Russia and the U.S. still hold the vast majority, maybe 90%.
And new threats. Cyber attacks. Terrorism.
Those are major concerns. Cyber attacks on command systems, non-state actors getting materials, plus geopolitical hotspots, Ukraine, the South China Sea, flashpoints where escalation is a constant worry.
You have the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons trying to ban them.
While the nuclear-armed states still largely rely on deterrence, it's an ongoing tension.
So Trinity, it's this double-edged sword legacy, isn't it? Incredible human ingenuity.
Married to this terrifying destructive power, it forces us constantly to ask how we manage scientific progress responsibly.
That flash in the desert really did signal a new age. Its impact is just immense and complex.
It helped end a terrible war, yes. But it started a dangerous arms race, reshaped global power, instilled this deep nuclear fear, and left us with these profound ethical questions we still haven't fully answered.
So as we look back at July 16th, 1945, the big question hanging over us is, how do we navigate this? How do we use science for good without risking annihilation?
It feels like the path forward has to involve more openness, doesn't it? International cooperation, a genuine commitment to peace, trying to dial down the tension.
It's a constant balancing act, weighing that incredible power science gives us against the wisdom needed to use it safely.
Trinity is the ultimate reminder of that responsibility. The need to balance our quest for knowledge with a commitment to our shared future. That's the challenge it left us.